What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about one of my favorite subjects, film photography. Today I want to go over something that I had a really hard time figuring out, spent a lot of money, burned through a lot of film, and I'm hoping this can help someone. And we're going to be talking about how to maximize the quality of your film, making sure you're getting the best shots possible, and most importantly, making sure that you get the most out of your negative. A lot of people think that the fact that, one might want to shoot film automatically equals to the photo looking low quality, the colors looking a little muddy. Film photography, it's an art. Mastering the film rolls, it's an art. There's a lot of film rolls, there's a lot of techniques, there's a lot of ways that you could possibly go about this. In no way, shape, or form I'm saying that this is the right way to do it, but this is the method that I found that has helped me achieve some of the best photos that I've possibly gotten, and it has also allowed me to be able to focus at least 90% of my work exclusively to film photography. So today we're going to be doing a deep dive in what my process is, how I approach it, how I color, and how I, act upon certain circumstances. I chose a few examples that I think are going to be great because they're situations where I run into very unique issues or problems or results, and hopefully, this serves you. So let's get right into it. So first things first, let's talk about film stock, right? This is not going to be a film stock video, but if you don't know anything about film, the basic rundown, it's you have a film camera. Inside the film camera, you insert the roll, which is essentially where the pictures are being printed. Out of that, you get a negative. Once you have that negative, you could either take it to the lab for them to develop it. You could develop it yourself if you have the ability to do that. After that, you have two options. Either you print it and scan it, or you have the negative be digitized, so that way you could have it on the computer and then do any post-production that you might need to do, right? For the sake of this video, we're going to be doing scanned negatives. So right at the very top of the list of the things that I wanted to improve in order to get better film photos was exposing. How are you exposing the film? It's everything. It determines the amount of light, how the image is going to look. So how do I meter film? If you have bought film ever, you can see one of them here in the box or in the roll. They have a number, right? Those numbers say the ISO or the ASA that the film has, which is essentially the sensibility, the speed at which the film shoots. And then if you read the fine print, it also has the temperature, right? So you notice, guys, that for the purpose of having an easier way to do an example, I divided everything into 3 columns, right? So let's start with column number 1, right? Right here on the left, we have some of my favorite film rolls, right? We have Portra 400, Portra 160, HP5, and Portra 400. If you see the box or if you see the roll, you'll see that we have a number here, which is 400, right? Normally, in the settings of your camera, you have a little knob or a little dial where you set what's the speed of your film, what's the ISO of your film. Normally people would just put this, whatever's on the box, right? Which there's nothing wrong with that, but there's a way to get better quality photos, specifically if you're doing post-production, right? So the way I do it is that I reduce the box speed, whatever's written on the box or in the roll, by 2/3 of a stop. If you know ISO, you'll see it here on column number 2. ISO, it's measured in thirds of a stop. So we have 800 to 1000, that's 1/3 of a stop. 1000 to 1250, that's 2/3 of a stop, so on and so forth, right? So usually the way I meter, I meter everything 2/3 of a stop under whatever the box speed is. And I'm gonna explain why in just a second. So what does that look like, right? Let's do a little cross-referencing here. So 400, right? We have our 400 here. 2/3 of a stop would be 1, 2. We're talking about 250. For 160, it would be here. I actually already did it. 125, 100. I'm gonna explain to you guys exactly why I do this in a minute. 400, we already have it here. 800, we have 800 would be 640, and then 500. Let's get that out of the way. The speed of the film, it's not changing. What's changing, it's what you're telling the camera to interpret it as, right? You have your camera's gonna think that we're shooting at 250 ISO raw, where in reality we're shooting the 400. Follow-up question, it's always, but why would you do something like that? And that's where our column number 3 comes in. What I do in order to get more information out of the negatives, it's I meter for the shadows. There's no right or wrong way to do it. This is just how I do it. I usually just meter for the shadows. And the reason why I do that, it's because recovering highlights, it's pretty much impossible on film, where shadows are a lot easier to recover. I had the same issue at the beginning. It's a little confusing. It's a lot of numbers, but it's actually pretty simple. The one thing that you need to keep in mind is that the reason why we're doing this is because we're trying to get the most information out of that negative as we can, right? We're trying to maximize it as much as possible, right? So for, the sake of having an example, let's say that you're shooting a portrait 400 roll, right? And you're measuring it at 250. And you're like, yes, it's going to be brighter, because you're tricking the camera into thinking it's 250, where in reality it's 400. So automatically the image is going to be brighter. But if you're metering for somewhere along the shadows and the midtones, automatically your highlight value, it's going to be lower. And the result of that, it's going to be a better balanced image, which is going to give you a lot more room when it comes to post-production, editing, coloring, or whatever else you might need to do. This is specifically valuable when you're shooting client work, and you'll see that it's an image that it almost looks flat, right? Which is what you want. If you're trying to maximize the ability to, post-produce your photos, specifically if it's client work, this is what you want, right? In this very specific case, the creative direction that I wanted to take for it, I wanted to shoot it on a tungsten balanced film so it would look a little bit colder, but I didn't have one, so I had to go ahead and shoot it with a portrait 400. But I knew that if I was metering it correctly, I was gonna have an image that was gonna allow me to essentially reshoot it in post, right? With so much dynamic range that I was going to be essentially able to do absolutely anything I wanted. So this is what I got back from the lab. This is what it ended up looking like. But you'll see, if I start toning this image, I can essentially make it whatever I want, right? I can reduce the highlights a little bit if I want more separation. I can lift up the shadows. For the sake of this image, let's just add a little bit of green in the highlights. Let's just up the red in the midtones, and give me that blue, give me that cold, give me that cold. This is already looking like a completely different image, right? You essentially have free reign to recreate or, essentially do any creative direction that you might want in post, right? For the sake of this example, I also want to show you one where I didn't really touch much. As you'll notice, it didn't really change much. Just, a little bit of correction, a little bit of toning. So one thing, obviously, first, lots of contrast, saturation, reduce the brightness. But yeah, I usually do levels a lot, right? You see, okay, so we're seeing that we have a lot of blue. We got to take out that blue. This is all based on the original toning that I did, right? Which again, it was a creative decision. I wasn't following anything specific. Okay, so if we reset it one more time, you'll see how far you could take this image just with a little bit of post-production and by shooting it properly. Kind of like the same thing with black and white. In the case of this black and white image, you'll notice that I didn't really change it as much, because I feel like the conceptual to the actual final image, it was very close. It didn't really change much, but you have all that latitude that you could, if you wanted to, you could always, redirection it into whatever direction you want. Same thing with this one. In this case, the image was very similar. I still had that same issue that I was having on the other case, where the temperatures were a little bit off. You'll see that her skin and the colors are very towards the blues, and that's because the light temperature was different from the actual temperature of the box film. But you'll notice that in an image like this, we didn't have that issue, right? This is whatever I got from the lab, and this is the final image. The only thing I did is I added a little bit of saturation, toned the skin a little bit better because it was looking a little flat. Also, these are modeling shots, so very commercial looking. And yeah, we were going for something Calvin Klein's Gap. So I think this is great to kind of illustrate everything that you can do with the film if you shoot it properly. So yeah, guys, W film. Honestly, this is one of my favorite videos I've done. Film, honestly, it's my favorite medium. I really love it. When I started shooting film, my goal was to yeah, to make it my main medium. I wanted to have all of my work, or as much as I could, done in film, and luckily for me, I've been able to do that. And this is one of the key factors that allowed me to do that, because it not only made my images look more professional, it also, gave me creative liberty to, take decisions after the fact. It also gave me insurance, because I'm not specifically or exclusively locked into whatever I was shooting or whatever came back from the lab. If you have any questions, I know this is a very slippery slope. This is a very confusing topic, and we're also dealing with chemicals or physical material, printing, shooting, metering, light. There's a lot of factors that come in. So if you have any questions, please drop a comment. Let me know if you have, if there's anything confusing, if there's another video I should do about shooting film or how I shoot film, if there's any suggestions about how you go about it, or anything specific that you might want to chat about, leave a comment. Sub up, like up. If you don't know about me, my name is Gara. I'm a multidisciplinary artist. You can check me out on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. You can even go on my website, check out some of my work, some of that work that I've done in film. You can check out my videos, you can check out everything. So sub up, like up, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.